Our speaker today is Dr. John Foubert. He's a college professor, media personality, and president of a national nonprofit organization. He founded the organization 1 in 4. It works to end sexual violence on college campuses and in the military. He's written 10 books, 7 of which are about sexual assault prevention. He's testified before Congress, appeared on media outlets like CNN, NPR, New York Times, and U.S. News and World Report. And more importantly than any of that is he's a follower of Jesus, and so he's coming at these issues from that perspective. So would you welcome Dr. John Foubert?
Thank you. Thank you. I am really excited to be here today. I've had friends who've worked at Tabor for a long time, and they always told me what a great place it was, and it's my first time to visit you, and so I hope it won't be my last. When I go speak to places, I tend to speak about one of 3 topics, either rape, porn, or Jesus, and so I fit right in with the silence breakers because I tend to talk about things that make people uncomfortable. Depending upon the audience that I'm speaking to, different things in there might make them uncomfortable. What I'm going to talk today about, though, is pornography. I've been studying pornography for about 10 years, and I just finished writing a book about it, and it's in the printing process right now. But one of the reasons why I'm excited to do today's presentation is it's the first time that when I'm talking about pornography, I'm giving you information that I just put in my book, which is 250 studies have been done about pornography, most of those in the last 2 years. So if you talk about knowledge of this whole thing, it's just exploding. And I hope to share some of that with you. I, of course, want to say, this is a difficult topic. If some of the things I say to you don't make you uncomfortable, I'll question whether you have a pulse. Because I think that anytime that we look very directly at something that is evil, where sin is at the root, we're going to get uncomfortable. So I want to warn you about that ahead of time. Please just take care of yourself. You got lots of good resources here. And I don't take offense at anybody who leaves during one of my talks because you may need to go to the restroom. You may need to just take a break or whatever. So please don't worry about that. Now, in order to understand pornography, at its root, it's a business. So the people who make pornography, they want to make money. And that's something that I think we need to understand. And it is extremely lucrative. It's gone from a $4 to $13 billion business just in the last 10, 15 years. And so if you want to figure out, what does that $13 billion look like? If you take what the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball make in a year, it is more in porn combined. So porn makes more money than the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball every year. So we're talking about a gigantic business. Now, worldwide, we're at $100 billion a year. So if you take a look up here at porn and you look at all of these companies here, all of which you recognize, you add them all up, it doesn't equal the money made in porn. So that is the vast network of pornography and how they're making so much money. Now, who uses pornography and how often? Whole lot of data about that. This is the first time I've ever been to a school where before I came here they gave me data on how often students here are using pornography and what percentage. So I'm going to give you some of that data too because that's been shared with me. In the most recent data from your school, which is this year, 69% of Tabor students have seen pornography. 81% of Tabor students agree that porn is harmful. 84% say it's sin. And then it gets interesting. A third say you can talk about it here, about dealing with porn or masturbation without being judged, but 2/3 cannot. And so what that says to me is we do need to break the silence on this, and that a lot of students have seen pornography. Now, the way that question's worded, that could be like a one-time seeing it when you didn't want to see it, you never watched it again, or it can be you're watching it 2, 3, 4 hours a day. So there's a lot of variability in there, of course, but it does tell us something. And, that there also are some people who don't necessarily see it as harmful or sinful. And so I think there's room for some education there, too. One thing I will say, and I certainly don't mind you taking pictures of these slides or whatever, I'm going to give all these slides to campus pastor, chaplain, what's your title? The dude with the beard. And so if you want my slides, you can have them. I want to briefly address whether or not porn is sinful and what the Bible might have to say about that. I cannot really think of a situation where someone would seek out and look at pornography where lust wouldn't be involved. Maybe there could be some situation we could come up with to indicate that, but I kind of doubt it. And porn essentially feeds that lust. And you can see that in Matthew 5:27, about looking at someone with lust in your heart. So I think that tells us something. And the whole thing that I was really interested to hear about, many students here feel like they're going to be judged if they talk about their struggles in this area. Well, I think we should look at Galatians 6:1, because it says, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently, not judgmentally. So let's think about, now, and that's the perception of students. That may not even be the reality. It may be that if you talked about your struggle with pornography, that someone else would be very accepting and understanding, but the perception here is it's all judgmental. So I would challenge you to think about how can we change the culture so it's less judgmental. Now, nationwide, lots of data on pornography use. Today, in the United States, 64% of men, 42% of women are looking at porn every month. Now, this isn't just people in a faith community. This is the nationwide. Young people, defined in this study as 18 to 30, about 2/3 of men, about 1 in 5 women are looking at porn weekly. So that's a lot. If you look at boys, this is something that's very interesting in terms of how things have changed, and it's changed because of this device and how portable it is. That between 2008 and 2011, porn use among boys went from 14% to 49%. Okay, so half of them. And daily use more than doubled. And it's because they have a device where they can look at porn whenever they want. They don't have to go to a store. They don't have to go anywhere. They can either just use their phone or somebody else's. The other thing that's very interesting about recent studies is, people say, is porn use increasing or people always do this? Well, people always did for a long time have been looking at porn, but it has changed dramatically. And what these numbers here are men and women. So in the 70s, 45% of men, 28% of women were looking at pornography. In the 90s, when it was much more available but not yet on the internet, there was 61% of men who were looking at pornography. They didn't, for whatever reason, that study, they didn't collect data on women. 2000 to get up to 86%, that's with the dawn of the internet age, and then 36% of women, and then today we have 92 and 50%, and I really would attribute that to the ubiquity of smartphones and those sorts of things. So it is extremely common for people to be looking at it. Now, I interviewed lots of people for my book, many of whom were struggling with pornography in some way, and I want to tell you a little bit about Paul. Paul's not his real name, but he's a 19-year-old. He would fit right in this room. You would recognize him as a student here, although he's a student somewhere else. Very athletic, he's bright, and he's a solid believer. And here's what he told me. He talked about when he was 14. He said, well, people would be joking around like, look at this, and they pull up some porn video on their iPhone. My freshman year was a big exposure because I was kept pretty innocent and guarded from being exposed to sexual images. I remember one time a guy after practice, he was a football player, thought it was ridiculous that I'd never seen porn, so he would show it to me. And I'd be like, I don't know about that. And I was waiting for my mom to pick me up. He would look up something and say, hey, look at this. And I just looked away and said, yeah, okay, whatever. And he was in unbelief that I wouldn't want to look at it. Well, that exposure began his addiction. And from the age 15 to 17, 3 to 4 times a week, when he got home from school, he would go into the bathroom, he would look at his iPhone, he would masturbate to pornography. And that was something that really had a profound impact on his life. What I can tell you, though, is he's been clean for 2 years. That he was able to break that addiction with the help of the Lord and the help of his dad. And so he's now living in a pure way. Now, I say that story because so much of beginning porn use with so many people, and I believe especially in the Christian community, initially is unintended. Okay, first time I saw pornography, I was in college, I was in a fraternity, and in order to be initiated, I had to watch porn. Okay, so that was not something I chose to do, it was something that was chosen for me. Not unlike the experience of many others, but today it's younger. So well over 2/3 of 15 to 17-year-old adolescents have seen porn when they didn't intend to. Could be that other people showed them. It could be a pop-up on their screen or whichever. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the trend in pornography over time. What's the content? If you ask someone in their 50s or 60s about porn and they haven't looked at it since, what they're going to think of is porn as a Playboy centerfold or two people having sex on film, and that it's pretty basic. And that's what porn was like many, many years ago. It's not like that anymore. It has moved. There was a study done. 86, violence was pretty rare in porn. Then in 1998, violence became much more prevalent. And then today, what is mainstream pornography is very violent. So let me explain that to you a little bit better. None of the 250 studies that I looked at to write what I wrote better explain the pornography of today and how it's violent and what impact that violence has. So this is the part to really tune in. What they did was they got, and this was a secular group, they bought the 25 most commonly watched, rented porn movies and the 25 most commonly purchased porn movies. They trained a team of coders and they watched every single one of the movies. And they counted the behaviors that were in each scene because they wanted to try and figure out what's happening in porn, how can we teach people to that. And what they found is that in 88% of the scenes, okay, this isn't movies, but 88% of the scenes in movies of pornography included a man being violent to a woman through any of these sorts of behaviors, whether it was spanking, slapping, hair pulling, or whichever. That 88% of the scenes. In 41% of the movies, there was a scene in which a man inserted his penis into a woman's anus and then immediately into her mouth, essentially saying you can eat your own excrement. So, and that study, by the way, was published in 2010. All signs are that number has increased since then. And that's a common way that women are demeaned in porn and are treated as less than human. Now, what happens, the study went a little deeper. I find this fascinating. When you have a man who hits a woman in porn, 95% of the same time, this exact same thing happens. Either she responds with pleasure or she has no response at all. Think about that for a second. Man hits woman all the time. She responds with either pleasure or she has no response. So the average age right now that boys are looking at porn is 11. So when they're seeing this, the message they're getting is, well, I guess she likes to be hit because she's responding with pleasure or she has no response at all. And girls are increasingly looking at porn. And so if they're seeing it, they're like, well, I guess if he hits me, I should like it. So that's how pornography connects to Title IX violations, sexual violence, domestic violence. It's because porn is a recipe for violence against women. Now, in fact, when studies have been done to figure out the impact of women on porn directly, not just studying the media, but what the impact is, porn use actually is associated with greater acceptance of sexual victimization. I guess I deserve this. I guess it's okay. That's what I've seen. Now, there's a line of research that talks about the script of porn. And I don't mean what's written out on paper, but sort of what story does it try and tell. And a lot of psychologists have found that porn creates this script for people that then guides particularly men's sexual experiences. All of these effects have been shown through porn. And it's not just any man who's used porn, because frankly, almost all of them have at some point. But as men use more and more porn, they're more likely to use it during sex. I talked to people who said, yeah, my boyfriend pulls out his iPhone and he watches porn while he has sex with me. Yeah, that's rude. They request particular porn sex of a partner. The number one act right now that men are asking from women that's based on what they've seen as porn is male to female anal sex, because that's so popular in porn movies. They have to conjure these images of what they've seen in porn to maintain their sexual arousal. You can read into that what you'd like. And then they have more concerns over their own sexual performance, and they don't enjoy sex as much. The porn industry lies to you all the time. They say, watch porn, your sex life will get better. Well, that's not what the data show. So what does the porn do to the brain? This is the stuff that I've found really interesting, because I think if we understand how our brains work, we can understand why, to some of us, looking at porn is something that a big part of us wants to do, and it's because of how our brains are created and how porn takes advantage of that. So what brain researchers have found is that porn is just as addictive as methamphetamine and coke. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody who uses it will be addicted at all, but it attaches itself to the same area of the brain. It also does what's called modifying neural pathways. Okay, we in our brains, we have different understandings of how things work, what something follows from another. We see a meal in front of us that's Thanksgiving dinner, we salivate, we think we're about to eat. We are, let's say, you have a married couple, they undress, they think they're going to be intimate. Okay, so there are different things there. What porn does, and the more that people use it, is people become more and more sexually aroused by images on a screen than by people. And that's because of how the neural pathways in the brain are reformatted. Now, they've done lots of studies with men. They'll actually show them porn and watch what happens in the brain. And what they found is that they reacted to the women in porn the same way they react to an object, not a person. Okay, so very clearly showing them as sexual objects. And that's important because when we dehumanize people, when we think of them as less than a person, that makes violence against them much more possible. So the maps in all these nerve cells that travel through the brain just become rerouted as people use more and more porn, and the nerve cells that fire together, see an image on a screen, have an orgasm through masturbation, they become fused. And it inhibits sexual functioning in person. Now, there's a study, 20,000 men, and what they found, too, to reinforce all this, is that when men view porn, they tend to treat women as objects rather than as people. So that was that. Let me describe Greg's experience. Greg, not his name, displays some of this very well. At first, watching people who have sex disturbed me, and I didn't want to see it. But then slowly, it is totally a drug. I developed tolerance. So what shocked me became interesting, and what used to interest me became boring, and it took more variety, more frequency to get the same effect. And the really wicked part about it, he's a believer, the really wicked part about it is it gets more perverted. And so I felt that happening, and it terrified me. After a while, I realized I was addicted, and I needed to do anything to get out of this. This is the rewiring of his brain. And it completely goes along with this next study, that as people continue to watch pornography, the same old porn doesn't have the same effect. It's not as arousing. So they get into deeper, more violent, more extreme, more just out there images in an attempt to obtain the same level of arousal that they'll never have again. And they'll never have it again because of how the brain operates and dopamine, which I'll describe in just a second. Now, and frankly, we become bored quickly with the same images. Now, dopamine, if you think about it, dopamine is that thing in your brain that doesn't necessarily make you like something, but it makes you think you need it. Okay? You need food or you will die. You don't need sex or you will die. A life without sex would be an unfortunate life, from my perspective. Now, there are people who do that, and more power to them. But let's just say I'm very glad that I'm married. But you know, someone could not have sex their whole life. They're going to live. Not have food. You're not going to live that way. Now, here's how dopamine functions. The brain keeps experiencing these way high levels of stimulation through the dopamine that's released when someone orgasms to porn. And after a while, the brain says, whoa, this is just all this dopamine getting way out of whack. We're going to put less dopamine in the system because this is just too much stimulation. And then the person becomes less satisfied with masturbating to the same old porn because there's less dopamine saying they really need it. So they're going to look for a stronger hit. And the stronger hit literally will probably involve hitting, violence, those sorts of things. Because they want that same dopamine release they had in the beginning, and what the body will do is they'll never let them have it again, but make them think they can. So here's a great reason to think about porn and why we might avoid it, in addition to all of the spiritual reasons why we know that it's wrong. When people have what's called compulsive use, okay, they feel like they have to look at porn and masturbate as much as they need food. 60% of them will have a difficulty achieving an erection with a partner, but they'll have no trouble with porn. So those are the odds that people would be looking at. Now, maybe someone will be in the 40%. They function both ways. However, the odds are against you. Now, the rate of men today with erectile dysfunction in the 18 to 30-year-old group has gone through the roof. Okay, 1948, less than 1% of men under 30 ever had any instance of erectile dysfunction. 1992, more porn available, not on the internet yet, 7%. 2014, 33% of men under 30. They are rushing into doctors' offices begging for Viagra because they don't know what's going on. It's the porn. So porn actually makes you less smart, believe it or not. It shrinks the brain. The more times a week people watch it, the more the brain literally starts to shrink. It slows down short-term memory. And yeah, if you ever thought, well, this stuff makes me less smart, it actually does. There's data to show that. Now, there's a subtype of pornography, obviously, called child pornography, which a lot of people will just call child abuse pictures. Because what they're filming is child abuse. These people can't consent to what's being filmed. In a lot of cases, they're certainly being forced into what's doing it. 20% of the profits of the porn industry are in child porn. 21% of men who use porn are looking at child porn. And that leads them to be more sexually interested in kids. So the porn industry has a vested interest in keeping child porn there because that's where 20% of their profits come from. And that's scary. The other thing that's scary is that today's pornography is trying to get people into child porn by making the actors younger and younger and younger and hiring people that are 18 that look like they're 14 so they can get them into child porn. Now, I won't belabor this story too much, but essentially it was from a student named Tommy, and I asked all my participants, I was like, what's the youngest person you ever saw in porn? And there were several who said something like this, and he essentially said, well, probably 14 or 15, and it kind of looked like she didn't want to be there, and it was one of these homemade things. So not all child porn is commercially developed. It can be an 18-year-old boy raping a 14-year-old girl, putting it on video, flopping it up on the internet. So, and it's there. It's not going away. Now, porn and violent behavior, how are those connected? About 100 studies, it's like we don't need 101, showing porn use is either correlated with or causes a wide range of violent behaviors. You get more specific to sexually violent behaviors. You got 50 studies, more really, connecting porn and sexual violence. And it also increases the likelihood someone will commit that sexual violence. Now, there is actually this group of professors out there right now who have started a pro-porn journal. Because what they say is that the connection between pornography and sexual violence is putative. If you don't know what putative is, you're right with me. I hadn't the foggiest idea what they were talking about. So I looked it up. It's assumed or undemonstrated. These people, either they don't know how to read a journal, or they just are lying, or they just are not very intelligent. Because the odds that they are right, that pornography and sexual violence are not connected, is 1 in 88 decillion, 817 nonillion, 841 septillion, 970 sextillion, 12 quintillion, 523 quadrillion, 233 trillion, 890 billion, 533 million, and you kind of go on from there. So I'm on the side of data. They're not. A lot of people will think that people in the industry make a lot of money. They don't. Most porn stars are in it for a couple months or a couple of years, and they leave with nothing in the bank. And there's a 50% chance they were living in poverty to begin with. So that affects their decision. Now, a porn industry veteran was interviewed, and here's what he said. I like to show what the men want to see, violence against women. I firmly believe we serve a purpose by showing that. The most violent we can get is the ejaculation shot in the face. Men get off behind that because they get even with the women they can't have. We try and inundate the world with orgasms in the face. That's what they want to do. So, is there any hope? Yes. And I want to end with giving you some hope. When people do reduce their pornography use, it does tend to increase their commitment to a romantic partner. Those who frequently attend church, 76% less likely to use online pornography. People who say that their views of their religion are central to their lives, that they're not going to church because it's a fun place to be where they meet people, but they don't really meet Jesus. But the religion is central to their lives, they're less likely to use porn. If you look at the Bible, how does it tell us to react? The Bible addresses certainly many different aspects of how do we deal with sin. And it even says if Satan is opposing you, you stand. You stand right there and you oppose him face to face with the devil himself. But with sins of the flesh, he says run away. Can you believe that contrast? Okay, we're supposed to stand up to Satan, but with the sin of the flesh, he says, run away, flee. 2 Timothy 2:2, that's pretty easy to remember, just a lot of twos in Timothy. Flee sexual immorality, that kind of stuff you can look up later. 5 recommendations I have. First, I would recommend anyone, particularly someone who struggles with porn, restrict your access. Okay, if you use Google, it is so easy to go into Google, hit safe search. You're less likely to get unintentional messages or unintentional pictures that come up. Install an accountability service. The most popular one's Covenant Eyes. I also hear it's easy to get around. When I talk to porn addicts, they say Safe Eyes is the hardest to get around. So I would look into that, but up to you. This is a more radical idea, I recognize, but I would think about it. If you are addicted to porn and you can't stop looking, get rid of every device that you look on it. Get rid of your phone, get rid of your computer, use somebody else's, where it's monitored and all that. Think about the long-term consequences of you using it. Do you want to have sex with your wife? It's something to think about. Now, break the silence is my 4th suggestion, which is why I love the group here, Silence Breakers, because that's what they're doing. Talk to a pastor, counselor, mentor, friend. Talk to somebody. Don't sit there knowing you're using and not sharing that with someone. And develop a support system, accountability partners, support group of friends, and, of course, the Almighty. Couple programs I would mention to you. First is called the Fortify program. It's from the people who developed the website Fight the New Drug. It's a secular program, and it's good. Also lots of books, Pure Desire, Every Man's Battle, lots of those out there that can be used. Almost any community in the world, well, at least in the U.S., will have a Celebrate Recovery group. That's a good ministry to look for. And a website, endsexualexploitation.org. So I would simply end by saying there's a whole lot of reasons to stay away from porn besides the Bible. The Bible is a sufficient reason, but there are a whole lot more. I hope you'll think about them and educate others about this issue and about what their use could be doing to them. Thank you all so much for having me today.